Hey there, I'm Aaron from Evac Station, reminding you that we do our own stunts, edit our own footage, and dish out our own insults. But funding is something we always need help with. For a small price that's less than the big gulp of soda you have got from concession, you can help keep us alive for another week. Just click on the Patreon link down below for more details. Thanks, and I'll see you after the credits. Hey folks, this is Aaron here to give you a heads up that the following podcast has a few audio glitches. I don't know what happened during recording, but when I went back to edit, there's a few moments where my audio actually cuts out. Doesn't make any sense. I think some edit settings were changed that didn't help out. So I'm going to go ahead and just give you a heads up now. Sorry for that, and also the podcast is a little long. Again, sorry about that. Next week we'll have a special guest, and here we are with Civil War.
Get ready for war. Pedal to the floor. I got no code of honor that I'm fighting for. On Civil War.
Hello Internet, and welcome to the After Credits cast during our big event, the Marvel Countdown to Infinity. And we wouldn't let a big piece of legislation come between us, because we're better friends than that. We're Captain America, and my friend from Wakanda, T'Challa.
Wakanda forever! I'm sorry. I'm like a couple movies ahead. My bad.
I feel like I should give you the title Prince T'Challa. I think that would be more fitting.
Yeah.
You're not a king yet. That's the next movie.
That's fair.
So a couple announcements before we get too deep into banter here. First off, we have a link in the description for this, the iTunes, the YouTube, the Google Play, wherever you're listening to this at. And this link will direct you to a Google form, which you can then vote on the next arc we do after the Infinity War, because Infinity War is a month away from whenever this goes up, I believe, or pretty close to it. We're down to the wire here, folks, so we want to know what you want to see next. We have options of Miyazaki, the Shyamalanizing, the DC Takeover, brother, Rage in the Cage, the Pixar Parade, and a bunch of space sci-fi movies we're just going to call Space Invaders, which focuses on movies with aliens in them. So think Aliens, E.T., District 9, stuff like that.
District 9.
Good shit.
So good.
So please put your votes in. Let us know what you want us to see. And again, there's write-in options too, so you can tell us individual movies you want us to do. We're going to be trying as much as we can between now and the end of the year to see what sticks, and we're hoping we can get a lot of people interested to see what happens. I don't have any other announcements, Ryan. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think that's pretty good.
Alright. This is a big movie, so I want to keep the intro short. Let's jump straight into the stats here.
Do it.
Alright, so Captain America, Civil War, came out May 6th of 2016. Directors were the Super Russo brothers, Anthony and Joe. I have writers on staff of Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. I'm sure we've seen those names more than once already.
Yep.
This movie stars literally everyone we've seen already, but because I have to be a completionist, I'm going to read them off for you anyway. Here we go. I've got Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, Paul Bettany, Jeremy Renner, Don Cheadle, Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Rudd, Chadwick Boseman, our new player here today, Emily Van Camp, Daniel Bruhl, I think I pronounced that right, Frank Grillo, William Hurt, back after many, many movies of being gone, Martin Freeman, Tom Holland, and Marissa Tomei. Both of those are also new players, and a lot of other characters. They're like little bit side characters, but this is a pretty big list. I think it's our biggest list so far, and it'll only get bigger as we approach Infinity War.
Well, I mean, it's the Avengers movie before Infinity War. It was their way to do, like, Avengers 2.5, which I'm not mad at them for.
No one's upset. I think a lot of people are happier with this over Ultron, and I don't blame them. This is a few steps above Ultron, no question. Let's go ahead and go some numbers here. Opening box office numbers were $179,139,000. domestic total for this movie was $408,084,000. And this is the next member of the Billionaires Club for the worldwide total of $1 billion with a B, $153,304,000.
Jesus.
That Billionaire Club is starting to get huge. I just saw a stat today that as of Black Panther's run up to now, Marvel has made about $14 billion plus in total.
Yeah.
We haven't even hit Infinity War, and it's hit $14 billion. That's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Hollywood bigwigs knew just how ridiculous this was going to be and why they threw so much money at it.
I'm wondering how much money they're going to get from all the Fox stuff they got. I mean, they put $52 billion... Wait, is it $52 billion? Yeah, they put $52 billion down for that. Just imagine what this is going to be.
They're expecting a hell of an ROI. They're expecting a hell of a return on investment for that.
I mean, they are getting the Avatar series. That's a pretty big deal. So,
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and see how these rank. For Civil War, this is the number 3 top-grossing movie of 2016. I know. Do you want to know what beat it, Ryan?
Yeah, let me hear
Fucking Finding Dory beat Civil War.
Are you... Okay, to be fair, Pixar... A lot of kids with parents... I understand.
Pixar's a hard...
And Finding Dory was...
Pixar's kind of a wild card. They do really well sometimes, other times they're just kind of, they're okay. In terms of box office, I mean. And in the case of Finding Dory, it was kind of a well-awaited sequel. People really liked the first one. I'm not surprised they were excited for the second one. I don't think it was as good as the first one, but that's just me. I think the first one's a fucking masterpiece. As for the movie that's just below it, that would be The Secret Life of Pets. It's number 5, number 4, which is kind of weird. That's that high.
Okay, I was about to say. I'm sorry. Did you say The Secret Life?
No. It's
Infinity.
It's the one step below, but I'm surprised how high that is. Still, it's really weird. I saw Secret Life of Pets. It's okay, but I don't think it's like billions. I don't think it's up in the billion club. I don't think it should be. It's weird. Out of the MCU, getting back on track here, it is number 5 in terms of domestic gross. So, top 5, very respectable. And yes, this is taking into account that Black Panther's out. So yes, do remember that.
All right.
So with that, Ryan, those are our stats. Are you ready for an act breakdown?
All right, here we go.
Gotta get my liquid courage up, and by that I mean a chug of water, because my throat's going to get dry quick. There we go. Here we go. A secret mission to stop Hydra terrorists goes whose entire power is basically chaos magic and reactors' lives. The combined New York and Sokovia Act's debate of whether or not the Second Amendment protects the existence of superhumans, or to be more precise, living weapons. Tony is devastated by white privilege guilt, but unlike the average good white American, Tony is actually guilty of crap he actually did. That actually happened. Anyone remember Ultron? Because of this newfound white guilt, or reignited white guilt, he's always had, he is all in for gun control. I mean the Sokovia Accords, which limits the freedoms of supers. That sounds familiar. Incredibles! Steve, the right-wing patriot that he is, expresses his opinions that he has the Second Amendment rights, and also human rights against the Accords. But he's outvoted by most of the Avengers and the alumni, nothing to Stark and his liberal agenda. I know, we're turning the tables now. We are then springboarded into the rest of the plot, which is far less to do with the civil. We are introduced to the King of Wakanda and his son, the former of which is killed immediately by what is believed to be Bucky, but, I mean, of course, come on, fake news. T'Challa vows to avenge his father and bring order to the Pride Lands. He then confronts Bucky on a rooftop where Cap and Falcon intervene. Car chase leads to the liberal shaming session from Tony about how Cap is an old man. Our villain finally gets his hands dirty by infiltrating the detention center for the super enhanced and triggers Bucky to go all Manchurian Candidate up in here. Fighting happens, and Cap takes Bucky away for a chill session where he reveals he sort of remembers what's actually happening here. Meanwhile, a B-plot happens with Vision, Wakanda, and Hawkeye, where some feelings are hurt, but more importantly, Tony finds Sony's Spider-Man, barely clinging to life after his previous films. Using his influence in a new suit, Tony gets Spidey free to join the MCU, where he meets up with Sharon Carter, who gives him weapons, intel, and a little lovin', if you know what I mean, before they meet up with the rest of the team. It is Team Cap versus Team Iron Man meeting at the Playground 3, the battle to decide the gun ban once and for all. Maybe. I don't know. Cool action happens, and Cap escapes with Bucky, but T'Challa's in hot pursuit, with a dash of Need for Speed. Tony is chewed out by the legendary Captain America. Collateral damage they cause. It's a lot of collateral damage. He's really bad at this, you know. Still bitter from his defeat, and not really over the death of War Machine, because that didn't happen. Tony tracks Steve to some place for the final sequence of the film. Here, the villain, Zemo, reveals his plan to the heroes, and then reveals that what we learned in Winter Soldier, but that Tony failed to find when hacking S.H.I.E.L.D. multiple times, showing that Bucky is responsible for the death of Bruce Wayne's parents. I mean, Tony's. Still not over the Martha bullshit, Tony takes his frustrations out on Steve and Bucky. Feelings are hurt, and Cap drops his shield. Finally, fucking get good, Steve, come on. Tony returns home with a breakup note from Steve. Steve is in Wakanda for now to grow his beard and get a little emo. The rest of the Avengers are broken out of jail off screen because that doesn't sound like an exciting movie idea. And Spider-Man is allowed to keep the suit that because now he belongs to the House of Mouse. But will Thanos make him regret it? Tune in to find out.
It's oh my god, I'm like internally cringing when you come to realize that yes, Steve is actually the Republican in this analogy.
Don't you hate it when I'm right, though?
Oh, you are right. It's just like, fuck.
And here's the thing, though. He's not a bad Republican. Like, he's... So if you go back in time to when Teddy Roosevelt was president, back when Republicans were good, progressive, awesome people, that's where I see Steve at. That's where I see Steve. He's a trust buster. He's a fucking Rough Rider. He's Teddy Roosevelt at heart right there. He's not this fucking Donald Trump bullshit. I'm just going to put that out there right now. He's totally not that.
That's fair. That's yeah, you're right. You're right. It's hard to fathom since I've only known those types of Republicans, but damn, you're right.
By the way,
Jesus!
Shout out to my fans of Teddy Roosevelt. Fucking one of the best presidents out there. Fucking trustbuster. Love that guy. Sorry, I can't help it. I love Teddy. He's cool. Do you know that guy got shot when making a speech and just got right back up and continued doing his speech?
And he kept,
it's fucking great. Can someone take a shot at Trump and see if he comes back up? I just want to see if he can do it.
Oh, bruh.
I mean, if he doesn't,
to the NSA agents that are listening to the podcast, please, he's just joking. He's just joking.
Come on, Trump, prove me wrong. You said you can walk into a school and see if you can take a Teddy Roosevelt shot. Let's do it.
Oh my god.
Hey, I'm not going to shoot it. I'm just giving him the challenge. It's like the ice bucket challenge, except a little more lethal.
Oh my god. Teddy Roosevelt challenge.
Oh my god.
Stand up there, give a speech. At some point, somebody's going to shoot you, but you have to finish the speech.
We got a little more political than I thought we were going to get very quickly. Alright, so Ryan, what do you think of this Civil War movie that's not at all political?
God damn. Well, I mean, it's Civil War. It was political as hell. Like at the offset when it first came out. In fact,
in the marketing, it was political.
All of Captain America's films have been like political intrigue / like set pieces that are meant to incite a lot of like debate and conversation over like real shit in our society, which is one of the big reasons why I've always loved it. And it didn't change. It's still it's still like my top 3 at the I say top 3 to make room for a couple of the new ones, but god damn it.
It's a really
Civil War. It's
a really meaty film. There's so much stuff that happens. I think you have to sit through the first act, or I guess you can call it the first act. Everything up to the Accords being revealed. That part's a bit, I would say, slow. It's a lot of build-up, and I understand that it's needed to help get everything leans crux of Civil War with Bucky, with Panther, with all this conflict between Stark and Tony. But you need that setup, and I heard a lot of people who I talked to. A buddy of mine actually really hates this one. He has bad taste in movies, but he hates this one he doesn't like he hates Guardians of the Galaxy. I still question him on that one. But his complaint with this one, and I understand where he's coming from, is that yes, it has a slow build to it. But unlike some films that have a slow build that don't pay off, I'm not going to name names here, we've dogged that movie too many times already. This one actually builds up to something meaningful and big and important. It's a needed build-up. It could have been a little quicker, a little more chopped up, but it was needed. I'll admit that much.
I honestly think the pace of the movie was really well done. I mean, the build-up, the beginning of it, I wouldn't call it slow. I would call it deliberate.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Intentional, because it's like it definitely takes its time in setting up the pieces, but you never feel bored. Like the first, or at least I never felt bored. Maybe that's because this is just my kind of movie. But like every piece that's laid, like you can see what it's doing, and it's well done. It's well delivered to the point where Tony is having this conversation with this kind of middle-aged black woman waiting for this elevator, and the whole thing is just kind of tense from go because Tony realizes that she's waiting at the elevator and she hasn't called the elevator yet. She's just standing there at this elevator waiting for him. And that just sets the tone for the whole fucking conversation. And I feel like the movie does that. The movie does that in a very deliberate way. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's slow. It definitely kept me engaged throughout the whole setup, and it definitely pays off at the end. Oh my God.
So Ryan, I made a pro-con list for this movie. I'm going to tell you right now, this movie is still probably going to be my top 5, top 3 possibly. I'm not sure where it goes yet. I'm still debating it. But I have a pro-con list I want to go over with you real quick, because I think there's some really good talking points here. If you'd indulge me. Okay.
Please.
So I'm going to start with the con.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So the Sokovia Accords, can I just say this should be the Tony Accords, right? Because when you think of all the shit that the Avengers are being blamed for, with the exception of what happens in is it Lagos? I think it's Lagos. With the exception of that moment at the beginning of this film, almost everything can be tied back to Tony. Most of the 3 or 4 of the villains we've seen so far are trying to get revenge on Tony. Ultron almost killed everybody. Made by Tony. I'm just saying, a lot of the big events that have happened are kind of tied to Tony Stark or Stark Industries to some extent. And I don't know why everyone else is being involved. I get wanting to include this for Hulk and Thor, but Thor has kind of got diplomatic immunity, considering he's Asgardian, and you can't really... I don't know what he's going to do about that. And then there's the Hulk, who... Fuck your law, man, it's the Hulk. He's not going to follow it if you try. Don't even try. So I agree with you partially. I definitely see where you're coming from. I wouldn't say that everything can be tied back to Tony, but when you have, well, no, because when you like, and this really hit me. It hit me when I first saw it, but it definitely hit me again on the rewatch when Secretary Ross is playing the clip of all of these huge ass things. It's like they start off with New York. I'm like, okay, aliens invaded. You can't really blame that on them. They actually saved the planet that time. Like, Shield, like the destruction of the Triskelion. Well, Hydra infiltrated a sanctioned government operation, and Cap took it down. So can't really blame him for that. And what I'm trying to get with this point, though, is I actually have a question at the very end of it. I forgot to read it. So my question is, why should the Avengers acknowledge this legislation at all? When, again, like we've both been saying here, it's either Tony who's kind of responsible, or something too powerful for the government to truly stop, like the Hydra thing, like the upcoming Thanos thing. Are these laws going to be worth enforcing when Thanos shows up? I don't think so.
I mean, like I understand, and actually, this is really interesting because I listened to a podcast about a week or so ago, that wasn't talking about Marvel, but it ended up on a similar discussion point, and I heard two people whom I really like listening to actually give the pro registration.
Okay, so how they sell you? How they sell it?
About so I wasn't entirely sold, but I understood where they're coming from, and the idea of it was that in order to create this governmental body and have laws that are made to protect the safety of everybody, some personal freedoms have to be given in exchange. And it's not because the law in and of itself is perfect, but because we're trying to do the best that we can with it. And so in exchange for some of those personal freedoms, certain things have to be, like, in exchange for that security, certain things have to be exchanged for that. And that's kind of the price that you pay for civilization. And they do a really good job of actually selling it. I can't do as good of a job because I don't super believe in it, but I heard where they were coming from. They don't do that in this movie, though. In this movie, I feel like the Sokovia Accords are a bandage solution where the governments of the world are essentially trying to get a hold of the one thing that they can get a hold of, and whether they're right or to do so or not kind of falls to pieces when these larger-than-life threats show up at their doorstep and laugh at their attempts to control shit.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I still feel like this law wouldn't... So I'm looking at movies like Watchmen and Incredibles as a comparison piece here, and when you see how the laws of limiting or banning supers affects those worlds, I don't know if this law really can work overall. Because if you look at the world of Watchmen, everything kind of sucks there. And if you look at the world of Incredibles, they're eventually needed again at some point, because there's always going to be some motherfuckers trying to ice skate uphill, or in this case, try to take over the world.
At some point, though, and I can have an I can actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because you don't hear about any supervillain or any, like, crazy-ass superhero act, like shenanigans happening after the law is passed. It sounds like it's just a really quiet and boring 10 years, which for the superheroes sucks because they have to go to a normal life, but for normal people was probably...
Well, you want to know why you didn't hear from supervillains that time? Because they're in the fucking government. They're running those laws. They're making those policies. They're trying to beat them. That was the way to beat them. I'm skeptical, though, because, well, look at our government.
Possibly. I mean, believe you me, I'm anti-registration all the way. I'm Team Cap all the way. All I'm saying is that they are reacting in this movie. I feel it is a reaction by the people of the world to try and take some semblance of control over the things that are like the closest that are in their reach, which are the Avengers, who are a group of superpowered individuals that are actually trying to do good, and good for them, but they want to have more control over what the hell it is they're doing. Never mind the fact that there really isn't a better solution than the ones that they're trying to come up with. And yeah, they're the only guys that are doing it on the fly, but it's either that or let New York get invaded by aliens, or let Hydra put, like, killer helicarriers in the sky and killing everybody at a moment's notice. It's not that they're doing stuff to cause crazy shit to happen, with the exception of Ultron. Fuck you, Tony, that's entirely your fault. But, yeah. But we got on a super tangent. My point is that in the kind of playback reel of the crazy shit that they were laying at the feet of the Avengers, 3 out of 4 of those things were things that were happening outside of everyone's control that the Avengers rose to the occasion and stopped. The last 2 things were Ultron, Tony's fault, and Lagos, which admittedly Wanda was partially cause for. She was unable to save everybody in that instance. I mean, a dude literally set off a big bomb, and she was trying to get everybody clear of it, and didn't get it entirely clear.
No, I understand. This ties into another point I want to make real quick. So it's kind of another con, but I'm just going to link into this one because it's kind of in the same vein. So in this debate of Cap's side versus Tony's side with this whole registration thing, with the whole movie, really, I honestly feel like it makes more sense for everyone to be on Cap's side. And here's my thing. With the exception of Rhodey, who is Tony's best friend, so he's going to partner with him on this one, and maybe Vision, which I'm going to get into in a minute, because he's programmed by Stark, it makes some sense he'd follow Tony, but again, I'm going to get into it in a minute. I feel like almost everybody else on Tony's side would normally... Black Panther's only on Tony's side because he wants revenge on Bucky. Otherwise, he'd probably have sided with Cap no matter what. Black Panther... She would normally never be with Tony, considering this history she has with Steve. And Spider-Man's only with Tony because money. I mean, come on, Marvel paid him for that. So, no, but seriously, I mean, he's only there because Tony gave him a suit. He's like, hey, help me out here real quick. That's really all it is. Otherwise, if he knew if he knew the full context of what's going on, Spider-Man would be like, wait a minute. I feel like Captain America's the one who I should be fighting with here. I mean...
That's a fair argument. That's definitely a fair argument. And I watched the movie with my roommate, and he had a similar argument. I can believe the justifications of Tony because he feels personally responsible, which he should. Thanks, Tony. Rhodey, which actually makes sense that he believes in it so hard because Rhodey's character from up until this point has been staunchly supportive of the U.S. government. Like, he knows it's not perfect, but he knows that they're overall trying to do the best thing and have the best resources to help the most people. So, as soon as the government said, hey, this is a good idea, they were easily selling Rhodey on it. And actually, I'm gonna come back to Rhodey in a little bit because I came to the realization of why he didn't die. But I can believe Rhodey on it. I can, to an extent, believe Vision because he is so far removed from the human argument of it, from the human side of it, that he's looking at it from almost a purely logical and quote-unquote ethical standpoint. Like, he's not really looking at the human impact of, all of the shit that this would entail for the people who are legitimately just trying to do the best for everybody. So I can see from a logical and purely ethical standpoint, Vision would side. And I see Black Widow joining specifically, and she said it. She said, she's seeing that this is where things are going, and that if they go along with it, they can have one hand on the steering wheel, and they can help kind of steer into it, so it's not as bad as when it gets forced upon them. So she's coming at it from the pragmatic angle. So I can believe it.
I mean, I don't think it plays out that way, fighting between the sides happens, but I see your point.
What? Yeah, I mean, and of course, T'Challa's into it because that bastard killed my father. I'm gonna catch him. Sure, I'll side with Iron Man. That's fine. And of course, Peter's there because money. Absolutely. That makes all the sense in the world. So yeah, that's how. Everybody else is like, no, that's dumb. We're not going to hand over all of our power to the government.
Okay.
Here with that nonsense.
But I want to get back to Vision, because I had a buddy of mine who actually was convinced that Vision's decision didn't make sense. And I asked him why. I want to hear your thoughts on this here. But he says, yes, Vision is logical, okay, but his advanced logic would likely see through the likely outcomes of what would happen here. Because you got to admit, in the previous iteration we've seen him in so far, he showed himself to be quite intelligent and quite, not, being able to see the future, but having a good idea of what to expect. And I feel like Vision would normally be able to see that this legislation would cause a rift and would cause the team to break apart. My only reason against that idea that he threw out there is he may have been a bit biased or blinded with his sort of relationship with Scarlet Witch and the desire to protect her over the love.
So I don't really buy it. I would argue that he is like a year old, like legit. He is like a year old. To the point I mean they start like Vision's entrance into this very movie is a statement that he still does not understand some of the basic concepts of human interaction. He just phases through Wanda's wall like, hey, we have guests, guys. And they're just like, what the fuck, dude? The door. He's like, but the door was open. I assumed. Damn. All right. I'm still learning. Sorry. So it's like, yes, he's super intelligent. Yes, he's super logical. But he still knows next to nothing about human interaction, and I think it's that lack of insight into, like, being human that causes him to really side pro-registration. I also think that he thought, naively, that if a clear and concise argument could be made for registration, that everybody could be convinced, and that they all could stay together and be happy and be registered and work for the government. Yay! But humans are not that simple. Vision.
I see where you're coming from there. I actually like that a little bit. I like that a little bit. Let's go to some pros here. I got some pros I want to discuss here because they're fun. Let's make this fun for a minute here. So. This is like
the pros are endless.
I'm sorry. This first introduction alone kind of cemented just how good he was going to be. With just like the quips, the colors, the excitement, the youthful energy. The last two Spider-Men,
they finally got him right. They finally got Peter right. I was like crying. It was so good.
The last two Spider-Men, especially the Amazing Spider-Man, were very depressing. Now, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man started off pretty good. But both of them ended on such a dour, broken, depressing note for various reasons. And reasons that were supposed to make sense thematically, yada yada yada. But they both felt so tired by the end of their own franchises that I just didn't feel like either one of them wanted to really truly be this character anymore. Whether it was because of studio meddling or because they were just tired of the character. But Tom Holland, he's embracing this with both hands. He's just like, fucking let me at it. Let's do it. Like, I just love that energy. It's so good.
So, I mean, the earlier Spider-Man attempts, they're definitely not perfect. They definitely had some huge flaws. But that is to say, both of them got a couple of movies in to the point where they were starting to deal with the heavier shit that Spider-Man deals with. Because let's be perfect, let's be real here. Peter Parker deals with a lot of shit. Like his stories get dark.
If you look through Spider-Man's comic history, I guarantee you, every time he meets a new character in the Marvel universe, not cinematic, sorry, they initially hate him at first. They don't trust him, they try to fight him, and eventually they're won over in some cases, but most of the times they just want to beat the crap out of him. The X-Men didn't trust him and wanted to fight him, the Fantastic Four didn't trust him and wanted to fight him. It's hilarious how often he gets shit on by other people when they first meet. It's just great. And then, that's ignoring that's on top of all of the big events that happened in his life, like the Clone Saga, the annulment of his marriage through the devil. So many horrible things. The Civil War fucked him over super hard.
Yeah, like real bad shit happens to Peter Parker. But I think
every day.
But I think the best thing about Spider-Man as a franchise is that even through all of that darkness, Peter somehow finds a way to go back to lovable, quippy Spider-Man. Like, he actually, like, embodies the hope that shit is gonna be okay, even through going through all of this darkness. And I feel like
Kind of like the Flash.
but I feel like the earlier movie attempts never really got to come out of that darkness. It's like they got dark, and then they couldn't pull up. They just were just there. So I'm really glad that they're starting. I'm really glad.
Stay on target.
Damn it! But I'm really glad that they're starting him as a 15-year-old kid that gets to just be happy. Like, like, I'm so happy they haven't even touched the whole Uncle Ben thing. They just let him be a 15-year-old boy and just be ridiculous. It's perfect.
I'm surprised that he didn't even get name dropped, though. That's a weird thing. But we'll get into that in the next time. We'll get into that in that movie.
Yeah.
I do want to mention a brief con, and it's more of a nitpick than anything. So, the Star Wars reference that's made when they're trying to bring down Ant-Man, as cool and as cute as it is, I want to just point out how cynical I am that this feels like a forced corporate synergy for the Disney properties. Fuck off, Disney. Quit doing this shit.
Okay, look.
I'm a cynic, Ryan. You know this.
Yes, it was a little out of place. It wasn't it wasn't so jarring that it takes you completely out of it. But you're right, it definitely was not as organic as it could have been. It
wasn't as organic as Ultron using the "No Strings on Me" song. I thought that was fine. I could be okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a con I think you can agree with me on before I get to the pro. How the fuck is General Ross Secretary of State? This movie came out before Trump was elected, so we can rule that out. Considering all the failings he had in Incredible Hulk, what makes this work? I don't get it. And on top of this, what makes less sense for me is this Federal Agent Ross guy who comes back in Black Panther. I get he's an actual character in the comics, but as a writer, a basic rule I was taught was don't have characters with the same or similar names because you're just going to confuse your fucking audience. If they're related, that's fine. You can do that.
I am expecting that. I am honestly expecting Everett Ross to be somehow related to the Secretary of State. I 100% expect that.
And if that's the case, I will ignore this in the future. But right now, it bugs me that they have two guys with the last name Ross.
Yeah, no, I 100% expect this. I can see it coming a mile away.
Alright. So going to a pro here real quick. Under another casting decision, a great casting decision. Chadwick Boseman is probably the most perfect person to be Black Panther. He's Robert Downey Jr. levels of perfect casting, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Like I can't think of anyone else who could fit that role better at this point.
So, like, I'll have you know, like, I will remind you that when this first came out, Chadwick Boseman was not a super well-known actor.
His only movie I knew of before this was like 12 Years a Slave, I think.
Was he in 12 Years a Slave?
I think he was the main character.
No, the main character was Chiwetel Ejiofor, and we'll see him in the next movie. No, I know Chadwick Boseman from 42, the Jackie Robinson biopic, and Get On Up, the James Brown biopic, in which he killed it. Like Jackie Robinson, like 42 was okay, and it wasn't because of him. It was just like the movie itself was kind of meh. But Get On Up, he played the hell out of James Brown. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. Watch that, and just watch Black Panther fucking be James Brown for 2 hours. You will not regret it. It's so much fun. So when I heard that they were casting him, I'm like, okay, this is going to be good. This is going to be real, real good. And even I was surprised with the level of thought and care that he really brought to the role. And it's really cool to see him play a protagonist that Marvel hasn't really done up until this point in their cinematic universe, because T'Challa is a very wise person. Like, he's not super out there, super in your face and quippy and funny, or like super stoic and like heroic and noble and whatnot. No, but he's really wise. And you see him, like, go through this character arc where he's a devoted son who's also, like, trying to be a diplomat, and then he's consumed by grief because his father passed, and he's trying to get vengeance, and then when given the truth, he pulls himself out of it and actually saves the day.
I do want to point out, though, that, and this isn't a nitpick, it's just something that's really interesting. So Black Panther and Iron Man are considered two of the smartest characters in the MCU, probably, right?
Yes.
Isn't it kind of ironic that the two smartest people in these movies are manipulated and controlled to fall to their irrational emotions during the film and don't pull back and analyze the situation that they're in like they normally would if they weren't being manipulated the way they are?
Well, both of those really smart characters are being consumed by the grief of losing a parent. So.
Oh no, I know. I just find it very.
And for Tony,
it's a good mirror.
Like for Tony, the grief is much more immediate because it doesn't hit him until like the last turn of the movie. It's literally he's doing his best to keep his friends together, but also he's trying to get them to do what he thinks is right. And then at the end of it, he's hit by this tragic grief and the realization that this dude killed his parents, but also that the guy he considers to be his closest friend knew about it and didn't say shit. So it's just grief and betrayal and rage, and he's just like, no, I'm gonna fucking kill him. There's no coming back for Tony. In that span of time, he just has to be in his emotions. There's no stepping back and being logical for him at that point.
Well, actually, what's funny now that you kind of framed it like that, though, their story arcs kind of mirror each other in a very unique way that only like divert from one another at the very end when Stark refuses to forgive anybody and Black Panther's like, I can't continue this. I have to take the higher road here. And that's what kind of leads us into the movies we have now. And I don't know, I kind of like how the storylines mirror each other throughout the whole film, with the loss of the parent, with the grief, with the irrational, crazy decision-making, the revenge, all that stuff. I like just how both of them progress through the film like that. It's interesting.
It's definitely interesting. I will say that the other point of divergence is that I feel that T'Challa gets a longer period to process his grief, because T'Challa's father dies like at the beginning of the movie. And you get to see him be in that anger and be in that rage for like the majority of the movie, because all he's on is, let me put on my vibranium suit and let me tear this man's throat out. And that's what you get for the whole movie up until he learns the truth. So I feel like he got a lot more time to process through it and was in a better place to make the right decision, whereas Tony gets hit with it and then is immediate in grief and rage and doesn't get any processing time.
Also, I want to bring up something real quick that was related to a comment I made earlier. So I apologize for assuming Chadwick Boseman was in 12 Years a Slave. I want to point out that I'm not racist to getting people confused because they look alike. I want to point out that I misread which actor was in which movie, and I thought he was in that movie. I completely just misread notes. That's all it was.
It's alright, we'll forgive you this time.
Okay. Ryan, I'm not a perfect man. I'm actually a very stupid man. I want to point that out.
Can confirm.
Thank you. Let's see. Let's see what other talking points I got here. Let's see. Okay. So the main conceit of the film is the situation surrounding Bucky. Basically from the killing of Tony's parents to using him as kind of the centerpiece for the whole conflict throughout the film. Mm-hmm. But first off, how come when Tony hacks S.H.I.E.L.D. in Avengers, and presumably other times throughout the series, how come he has no access to this information at all, or to find the records of it? Because they are there, so he should have some idea of the gruesome details of his father's death. And more importantly, the footage they do show doesn't really make a lot of sense, because this is a continuity thing for me. So when the car crashes at the beginning of the film and you see it crash on the side of the road, it's just the side of the road. There's nothing else there. There's no building. There's nothing. But when we get to a different angle for a different camera, which, by the way, why are there cameras in the middle of a dirt road? This camera changes angles and shows that the cars crashed into a building that was not there in the previous scene, the previous showing of that scene. And then, during the playback of this scene, we get a camera angle change to show us the inside of the car where he's choking out Tony's mom. Now, I know that for us, that's done so we can see it, but can Tony see that, or is that just for the audience there? And if Tony can see it, how is the camera able to get down there when it's just a security camera held up way high? That whole scene, to me, while important, kind of is weirdly framed and structured to a point where I don't think it works quite as well as they want it to.
Okay. Well, okay, so first off, to your first point about the car crashing into something, I've always seen, or at least I remember seeing that the car crashed into a tree alongside the road.
Yes.
Yes. And I don't remember it ever being a building. Granted, there being cameras, like, even if there is, like, a building or a plant nearby, and they just happen to be passing it, that was a little odd. It wasn't odd enough to throw me off of it, but it was there. That is a little odd. So yeah, I'll give.
Well, I was gonna say if you play back the scene when he's showing it to everyone when he's showing the clip to Tony in that final scene, you do see the building in that clip, which like I said was weird because it wasn't there before, which is why that threw me off so much. Like you see the wall of the building at the very least.
Okay, all right. Now, in regards to the camera angles, I think when the camera shifts to that clearer picture where it's much more cinematic and you're like kind of zooming in on people and you're kind of following as Bucky like is killing these people, I think that's definitely done for the audience's standpoint, but Tony is seeing everything from that kind of camera side view. So I don't think that Tony saw a close-up of his mom, like, pleading for her husband, and then a hand reaching into the window to choke her out, and then the camera pans up, and it's Bucky just choking the life out of her with no remorse on his face. I don't think he saw all that, but I do think he saw Bucky walk around to the side of the car and reach in. And since his mom is dead, we can safely assume that Bucky, like, actually finished.
No, I get you. But you do see where I'm coming from with this scene being a little awkwardly stitched together.
It's definitely, there are definitely liberties taken for more dramatic impact. Yes. It is a little, what the fuck am I trying to say? Disjointed. It's a little disjointed, but I don't think it wasn't enough for me to be kind of taken out of it, because at that point, all you're doing is kind of reveling in the slow reveal of this horrible, horrible secret. So you're so engrossed in what the fuck this means that you kind of you give a little extra slack for the the cinematography of the scene. That's what I'm trying to say. Damn it. English is hard. God damn it.
Alright. So I have one more pro, and then if there's anything else we need to cover, we can do a free form at the very end here.
Okay.
Actually, no, I have two more pros, but they kind of go together anyway, because it's all fun shit here.
Right.
So first off, every action scene is great.
Yes.
The best part, of course, is the airport scene. It's a little bit of a mess, I'll admit. It's a lot of characters to keep track of. But for the most part, it's really good. And I think we could... Ryan, you can argue with this one if you want, but I personally think that the final confrontation between Steve and Tony is probably the highlight of the film in terms of the action beats. With the well-choreographed fights, the well-framed moments to give you homages to the Civil War comic covers. It all comes together really good at the very end right there.
Yeah, no, you're right. I was trying to, because, like, I mean, the final action piece of the film is definitely the climax of the movie. It's the highlight. It's the fucking everything is falling apart around our ears, and we are literally seeing the two like leaders of the Avengers in a goddamn death battle. Like it's super.
It's time for a death battle.
Indeed. Like the copyright guys, we know we're not infringing on your shit. But it's I'm trying to step back from my emotional attachment to the scene because my heart is like bleeding every time I watch that shit, and it's amazing. But even outside of that, yeah, you're right. The cinematography, the choreography. God, I can't say words tonight. The choreography of the battle scenes, the working in of iconic fucking like covers, like the Clash with the Repulsors and Shield. I lost my shit the first time I saw it. It was perfect. Oh my god!
I was in the same boat, man. Same boat. But no, I mean it's hard to divorce emotional baggage from this scene because this fight, unlike every other fight throughout the series, with maybe a couple exceptions, it carries some of the most emotional weight in any of the fights in the MCU. With, like I said, maybe one or two exceptions, it's hard to really divorce that.
Yeah, I cannot bring to mind a fight sequence that carries such emotional impact. Like, I cannot think of one that even comes close to this.
I think the closest that comes up might be Star-Lord versus his father, but we'll discuss that more when we get closer to it.
Okay,
That's a close one.
We'll hold that. We'll hold on to that. I will argue that, but we'll hold on to that for Guardians too.
Now, I think this one still wins out personally because while that does have emotional beats that are really important, here we've had history. We've seen both these characters grow and change through their own respective franchises and with each other and how the whole thing goes. This is more of a breakup. This is more of a... It's a fight, yes, but it's a breakup and a disconnect of these heroes and these friends. The other one is a relation is we'll discuss more later, but I don't think it carries the same level of emotional weight to it.
No, it doesn't.
Significant emotional weight, sure, but not nearly this much.
Yeah, no.
And then my last pro here, and Ryan, I just wanted to put this in for funsies. Bucky and Sam are great on screen together.
Oh, yes.
I think there needs to be a spin-off movie. Sign Chris Evans up for one more movie where it's just him and his boys cruise around the country trying to pick up chicks or dudes or whatever. I want to see these three just have some fun. They deserve it, right? They deserve to have some fucking fun.
Yeah, no, a three-way buddy movie between Cap, Falcon, and the Winter Soldier definitely needs to be a thing. Please, it would be the best. I just want 2 hours of them in the car. Can you move your seat up? No.
I just want to see more of the. I just want to see more of the two boys just nodding in the car, like with the big smug ass look on their faces when Cap makes out with a chick.
Get it, Steve! I'm like, oh my god, guys, please.
Tap that ass, Steve. Tap that ass.
Oh my god, it's just fuck. Oh my god, no, I absolutely love it. I love everything about it. I love that there is an unspoken fight as to who Steve's best friend is. It's just they're never gonna come out and say it, but that's what it is.
Let's indulge that right here. Let's indulge that right here. If you had to pick, are you going to be #Falcon or #Winter Soldier?
Oh, dude. Oh, dude. I love both of them, and I will not say an unkind word about either of them. That being said, I gotta give it to the Winter Soldier, man. I'm sorry, they've known each other for fucking 70 years. This is a thing. This is a thing. To the point where, literally, Steve is breaking up the Avengers for Bucky. That's what's happening. Steve is breaking up the Avengers.
That's fair. I would say you are absolutely right. However, I do think that I prefer the chemistry on screen between Chris Evans and Anthony Mackie. The two of them play off each other so well.
They do. They do.
I need to see more of Sebastian Stan to make this fair, but from what I've seen so far, Those two just have a good back and forth. It's fun.
You know what I'm going to attribute that to, though, is the fact that Sam can be the more comedic relief of the two because he hasn't been through the tragedy that the other two have gone through. I mean, like Bucky's gonna have to be out and living a normal life for a little bit so that we can get more scenes between Steve and Bucky. Just like, do you remember that time we went to Coney Island for hot dogs and shit? And, like, we had to hitchhike because you were spending money to impress those girls. Like you don't get those scenes because their lives are all around fucking avoiding the government or saving the world. Like, they're doing so much serious shit that those quiet, like, comic moments of just being best friends happen like once every 3 or 4 years. So damn. So yeah, you don't get as much chemistry as with Sam, because Sam can just keep being fun.
So with that in mind, do we have anything else we need to talk about the film that I've missed that you can think of?
I want to bring up one more thing, and this is actually something that really kind of threw me for a loop because I was of one opinion when I saw the movie first, and then I came to the realization of why they did it the way they did on the rewatch. So I'm going to ask you the question to see what you're thinking of right now. Should Rhodey be dead?
That's a very interesting question. I think that if you wanted to carry the emotional weight of the film that they were intending to, like to take it all the way, if Joss Whedon had been in charge of this, I think War Machine would have been dead, without question.
Okay.
But the question of whether or not he should be is a very interesting one, because I think Tony still needs someone in his corner at the end of the day to kind of help him get back on his feet after everything that happens with Cap. Vision obviously can't do that. He's not qualified. Sorry. And no one else is going to be in his corner because, well, Spider-Man's a kid. He's not going to be emotionally supportive. Black Widow's clearly on Cap's side in the end. We know that for a fact. Yeah. And Black Panther, same thing, and he goes off to do his own thing. He doesn't care about Tony. He never cared about Tony. So, he kind of needs War Machine. And in that sense, no, I don't think War Machine should be dead, because otherwise Tony is literally going to just spiral out of control and go even darker. I don't think that is beneficial to what happens in Infinity War. I don't think it's going to benefit us there. So I think having someone to be able to pull him out of that is good. And since Pepper was not in the film, and since it was unsure if she was going to return, I think War Machine was your only choice for that at the time. Okay.
See, now, you're sounding more like what I sounded like after the rewatch. On my initial viewing, I'm like, no, Rhodey fucking plummeted 20 stories in a suit made of metal. That man
with no parachute
should be a goddamn pulp. Like, he should be gone. And if he died in the midst of this fight, him never being able to forgive Steve or any of the other people that turn coat on him would make sense. But it makes more sense now as I'm older from a story standpoint because of the reasons that you said, which I honestly hadn't really considered, but that's definitely an extra really valid point. But also because after that huge fight sequence, and Tony is seeing all of his friends being put in a supermax fucking jail because they're all criminals and they're not being treated like people who have legitimately saved the world a couple of times and are just trying to do the right thing. But he also then comes to realize Zemo's plan, that they've been getting played, that he's actually on the wrong side of this. So In truth, I feel like Tony really changes his mind about the Accords, like about like the central fucking conceit of the movie. But at the end of the day, the only person who still really believes in the Accords is Rhodey. And they have him like in that last scene where he's learning how to walk, and he's sitting there like, I've flown 138 missions for the government, and every one of them could have been my last, but I flew them because the fight needed to be fought. And I signed the Accords because they needed to be signed. Yes, this is a horrible thing that's happened, but I still believe that it needed to happen. They needed one person to still be pro-registration at the end of it. That's why
like I said, they kept him alive. Like I said, I think Rhodey needed to be there to keep Stark grounded, to keep someone in Stark's corner. So yeah, I think from a logical, he fell 100 feet reason, yes, he should be dead. From a narrative structure, world-building, continuity thing, no, you still need Rhodey at least until Infinity War.
Yeah.
And then it all's fair there. Everyone's free game. I don't give a shit. Well, no. Spider-Man's still off the table because he has a sequel right after that.
Yep.
Doctor Strange, I assume, is still off the table because he's important for later on. Black Panther's off the table because his movie made a bunch of money and he's going to need to stay around a little longer. Which is fair.
This movie made a goddamn $1 billion before it hit China. I'm sorry. I'm just saying. This is the fucking blockbuster. Although,
I wonder how it's going to do in China. If I'm being honest here, because China, I don't know if the racial messages and racial constructs of Black Panther are going to really translate to anything to China. You know what I mean?
That's fair, but I think the movie's going to do well in China for sheer fucking numbers. Just for the amount of people that are going to go see it. Will it have the same, like, super emotional, like, and racial, socioeconomic impact? No. But there are still, like, 1 billion people that are going to go see that shit. So, yeah, it's going to make bank when it goes overseas.
So, I think that's everything for Civil War. Ryan, are you ready for the review round? Are you ready for the review roundup?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Okay, so this movie scored a 91 with the critics and an 89 with the fans. Those are pretty good numbers.
Those are pretty damn good numbers.
Some reviews here, real quick. Let's see if I can find some familiar names here before I just pick random ones. Let's see. Kenneth Turin of the Los Angeles Times. I like picking on him. If you live and breathe Marvel, this is one of the MCU's stronger offerings. If you are a spy coming in from the cold, the answer is not so clear. I get it. I can follow that logic a bit.
Alright.
Well, no, I mean, if you think about it, if you've not really been into the Marvel zone, if you've maybe seen one or two, but haven't really been following the whole thing, it's fair you'd be a little lost in this film. It's fair.
It's true. And I've heard that be a common criticism throughout, like through a lot of people that have just never really gotten into the series, to the point where people are like, well, I want to go check this out, but I haven't watched any of the other ones, so I feel like I'll be lost. And that's fair. That's kind of fair.
Alright, so last week we were looking for Tom Huddleston's review for fucking Ant-Man. It was not there. He's back this week, though, Ryan.
Oh, boy!
From Time Out Magazine. And guess what? He's got my favorite review so far.
Shit. Alright.
Packed to bursting with one ingredient Batman vs. Superman lacked. Joy. Oh, Tom, please keep reviewing. You were my favorite right now.
I mean, he's not wrong in the slightest.
Alright, so I gotta get a negative review or two out of the way. Let's see. Kyle Smith from the New York Post. After the first two Captain America entries, the finest comic book movies of the last 5 years, this one is disappointing.
You know what? I feel like it's a backhanded, like there's a compliment hidden in the diss, and it's just like, wait.
I feel like it's disappointing because he wanted a strictly Captain America story, like the first two films. I totally understand that. I think that if you were seeking a Captain America-centric story with none of the other Marvel fluff, this is probably not what you're going to want. But if you can embrace all of Marvel, like the other review said, if you're definitely in the Marvel zone, this is perfect for you. So, yeah, I think that's where he's coming from on this one.
That's fair. That's fair. And to the people who say that, oh well, this isn't Captain America's movie, I submit to you the fact that the central fucking conceit is all around the fact that they're chasing the Winter Soldier, and Cap has to essentially decide between his team and Bucky. Like, as soon as Bucky is entered into the equation, he stops being Captain America. He starts being Steve Rogers again. And that's quintessential Cap. So, yes, it's Avengers 2.5, but it's definitely a Captain America movie. Because, like, any movie with the Winter Soldier is going to be a Captain America movie, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. And last one here, another negative review, but the wording on it makes it seem not so negative. According to Anthony Lane of The New Yorker, the motto of the directors, Anthony and Joe Russo, appears to be, if you can make it happen, do it. Don't hold back. I don't know why it's a negative review, but... Well, it's a snippet, it's a clip, but I imagine the overall review's not as good, but that feels like a positive to me. I mean, don't hold back. I think that's what directors should do. Just go with your gut and make something good.
Yeah.
So that's a review roundup for the reviews that came out when this movie was released. Let's move on to our next segment, Ryan, which is the listener question of the week. I forgot about that. Shit. So last week, we asked directors, if you could pick a director for a if you could pick a director for a upcoming Marvel movie, who would it be, and what would you make him direct? So Ryan, I have a couple answers, but I'm going to go with my top pick here. If you're interested in the other ones, I can maybe list them out.
All right.
But my top pick is Guillermo del Toro, because I love this guy. He makes some pretty damn good movies. He won an Oscar recently, in case that no one heard.
Oh, I hadn't heard.
And he's good at making monsters, and he's good at making creatures and all sorts of weird shit. And I thought to myself, what kind of story would involve that kind of stuff? And you can think the sci-fi space stuff. I'm thinking something more delving into the realms of hell. Specifically, Triumph and Torment, a Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom team-up movie where they venture into hell to save Doctor Doom's mom.
Oh, you bastard.
I think he'd have a lot of fun with that.
That is perfect. I mean, Guillermo del Toro is fantastic at doing like when I think of Guillermo del Toro's work, I think fables. I think like fables and mythical creatures brought to life in an amazing way on the big screen. I think of Hellboy. I think of
Pan's Labyrinth.
And that's Del Toro's work to me. I love what he did with Pacific Rim, but that's what I think of when I hear Del Toro. So seeing Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom delve into hell and try to piece some shit together and save Doctor Doom's mom, yes, all of that. I want every single bit of that. Oh.
And Ryan, what did you pick?
Oh, dude, I'm sorry. You just kind of blew me away with that one. That's freaking Oh, that's so
I had to hit hard.
That's so good. Oh shit. Damn. All right. So my pick, and it would be an interesting look, because I definitely want to see Christopher Nolan do something. Honestly, I just want to see him do something. I would love, and it would be a really interesting thing to do if he does it, because it would be really cerebral and like you'd really have to think about it. But I'd either want to see Christopher Nolan do a Daredevil movie, or
that's pretty good.
Or I'd like to see him tackle Moon Knight. I
don't know much about Moon Knight, but from what I hear, a lot of people compared him to Batman.
Like like, there is definitely kind of a Batman-esque component to Moon Knight, but I think what's really interesting about Moon Knight is the psychological issues that he faces, because he's not entirely sane. So I would definitely love to see... It would almost be kind of like a middle ground between The Dark Knight and Inception, if Christopher Nolan did Moon Knight. And so I'd just be really interested in to see what he did with that.
I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
So I want to tell you, I did try to find something for Quentin Tarantino. I do think I could put him in to direct a Heroes for Hire movie, because I think I think his level of humor would work for it, and his level of crazy violence could pull it off.
Yeah. Heroes for Hire. Yeah. It wouldn't even need to be a feature film. I just need him to do like a couple episodes. Give Quentin Tarantino like a small Netflix series. I just want to see it.
I give him a 90-minute short film.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that. So yeah, those are our picks for directors. If I get any submissions before this goes live, I'll cut them in here. If you're interested in hearing our next listener question, we can answer in it. That question is going to be right here. Ryan, are you ready for the next question?
I'm ready.
All right. What big Marvel storyline would you like to see adopted next to film? Obviously, we've just done Civil War. Infinity War is coming up, which actually is an event. And keep in mind, for those listening, when Marvel adapts these storylines, they tend to take them piece by piece, and they don't take the full storyline. So when you make a suggestion, feel free to include any kind of like a variance or twist you'd make to it to make it something that the MCU would be more likely to use. But feel free to submit anything you want for a storyline idea from Marvel Comics that should be in film. I think it'd be cool.
All right, I already have my answer. Damn. It's like my answer is more like my guess for what they're doing next. But yeah, no, I haven't.
Okay. I'm curious to see what you got there.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in answering that question, we have Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter. Or our emails, evacstation@gmail.com. If you have any questions you would like to answer, submit those there. And we'll be sure to read those live on our podcast when we come up next. I'll be posting this question all over social media in hopes that someone actually answers it this week instead of just likes it. Because liking does not give you an answer. It just means that someone likes it.
Please do it, guys. This is your chance to be a part of the discussion, and we want to talk to y'all. If you're crazy enough to listen to us ramble for hours, then you're probably cool enough for us to talk to. So say something.
All right, Ryan, are you ready for the next segment?
I am. Oh boy.
So, speaking of Civil War, Ryan, guess what? It's a fucking trivia war. For those listening, every week we ask each other questions, one easy, one medium, one hard, to determine who is the most knowledgeable Marvel lorester. And this week, we begin our first new round, first of the new round for the Phase 3 films. The final phase! Ryan, are you excited?
The final frontier. Yes, I'm very excited. Especially because we're talking about one of my favorites, like, right now.
So, we don't actually have a prize listed yet for who wins Phase 3. So we'll figure that out later. We want to get to questions, because this is running long. So, Ryan, are you ready for your first question?
I'm ready.
Oh, Doctor Strange.
I'm ready. Let's get him.
For those listening, by the way, we do the film coming up next to kind of see if we remember stuff, so we are doing Doctor Strange questions. Just that way no one's confused. Alright, first question. Though uncredited, Benedict Cumberbatch actually plays 2 roles in this movie. What is his second uncredited role?
This I like that you threw this one at me. He actually plays the voice of Dormammu, as well as Doctor Strange.
I made it easy because I knew you'd know that. If it had been Max, I would have been at medium, probably.
Because he just got to act against himself at the end because he's a fucking boss. That's why.
Good scene. Ryan, what is my easy question?
All right. So, after the first act of the movie, Dr. Stephen Strange reaches out to the east, to purveyors of the mystic arts, and happens upon a place of learning. What is the name of this place of learning where he meets the Ancient One.
And you're talking about the specific temple name,
Yes.
correct? Okay, well, I know it originally takes place in Tibet. I don't think it's the case of the movie, though, because China. So, shit, I should actually know this. I can't.
It is said a couple of times. Like, it is actually said a couple of times. I feel like I make my questions hard for some silly-ass reason. I'm sorry.
Maybe you make him hard, or maybe I'm just kind of really stupid with memory, but I cannot remember this at all for any reason. As soon as you tell me, I will be like, fuck, I should have known
Damn.
that. What's the answer
The
here?
name of the temple is Kamartaj.
Oh, I would never have remembered that.
No?
No, I would have forgotten that completely.
Okay, I'm sorry. My fault.
No, you're fine, you're fine. Alright, Ryan, your medium question. Are you ready?
Yes.
How is the Ancient One different in the comics? How is the Ancient One different from the comics, and why is there such a difference?
Ooh. Well, why is an interesting question. Well, first of all, the Ancient One in the comics is a Tibetan man, whereas the Ancient One in the movie is a bald woman by the name of Tilda Swinton, who's also white, and there's a lot of controversy around the whitewashing of this character. It was like, I'm pretty sure one of the big reasons, or at least the big unstated reason, was because of the issue between China and Tibet, and they really don't want to fuck over one of their hugest box office draws. So rather than have everything set around a Tibetan monk, they had it set around a white woman.
Yep, you nailed it on the head right there. I kind of figured you'd get this one, especially because I inadvertently dropped the hint during my attempt to answer the last question. So, yeah. Good, we got 2 points there. Ryan, what is my medium question?
Okay, your medium question. One of the main actors in this movie, and I will take the character name if you can't pull the real name, is actually a highly trained martial artist, although you would never know it. Who is the martial artist in this movie?
Okay, I'm assuming there's a trick question component to this here. I'm gonna say, and I'm trying to remember the name of the character, because I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna know the actor name, but is it Wong?
Okay, so it's actually not Wong. The actor who plays Baron Mordo, actually, Chiwetel Ejiofor, is a 5th degree black belt, which is why he looks so good doing the goddamn moves.
I would not have expected that. Okay,
yeah, that surprised the hell out of me, but yeah.
Alright, Ryan, this hard question is going to be hard for you.
Right.
I made sure it was hard for you.
Oh boy.
Doctor Strange has actually been referenced in 3 other Marvel films, Ryan, in props or dialogue. What are these 3 films?
3. Interesting. Okay.
I know you know one of these.
I know.
Can you get all 3 of them, though?
Alright. Ooh. Damn. I have to rack my brain. Hold on. Well, okay, so the first one that I can pull right out of my head is he was name dropped in The Winter Soldier, which caused me to lose my shit in the middle of the theater because I knew we were getting magic and it was going to be the best thing ever. Okay, let's see here. What the hell else would he have been referenced in?
You're going to kick yourself when I tell you the earliest one.
Where the hell? Hold on. Give me a second. Give me a second here.
Nope. I'll give you a second. Don't worry. I'm all waiting.
Where? Fuck! I don't know. I only know. I only know about Winter Soldier. Where else?
So I will give you the 2 of them here that you missed. The first one is in Thor #1. in the treasure vault, there's actually a fake orb of or a fake eye of Agamotto.
But that's not the eye of Agamotto.
But it is visually there. You can see something there that looks like it. And I remember when this first came out, everyone's like, "Oh my god, Eye of Agamotto, Doctor Strange!" And we wouldn't find out it's fake until, well, you'll hear in a couple podcasts.
All right, okay.
The other one is a little less obvious. I didn't know about it until I read about it. So in Thor 2, when Dr. Selvig is drawing on the chalkboard all these different fucking worlds and everything, he actually draws the crossroads on the board, which is a part of when you see Doctor Strange being flung across the multiverse, like with that whole mind-bending space mind scene that the Ancient One sends him on when they first meet. It's kind of part of that. It's this whole big crossroads of the universe there. Kind of a big part of Doctor Strange's stories in general, I think.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, no, I missed that one entirely. Good.
Well, trust me, I think a lot of people missed that one. So.
Good question. All right, okay. All right, so I missed that one.
Yep. So Ryan, it's up to me now to catch up with you. What is my hard question?
All right, your hard question. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm an asshole. We already brought up the casting and the changing of the Ancient One's character, and for whatever political / social reasons that it was done. But the actual nationality of the character in the movie is actually dropped by Baron Mordo. So, what nationality is the Ancient One?
Okay, so I remember when reading about this, I remember her being referred to as a Celtic woman, but I don't remember if that's the actress being referred to as a Celtic woman or the character being referred to as a Celtic woman. I'm going to assume it's the character, but I'm pretty sure I might be misremembering where I read that at. So I'm going to go Celtic. Let's go with that.
Final answer?
Yes.
Ding, 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 ding! You are correct, sir!
Yes!
Yes, Baron Mordo, as Steven is asking, just how ancient is she? He says nobody knows the age of the Ancient One, only that she's Celtic and she never talks about her past. Well done, sir.
I tied you. I did it with one question.
You did it. Well done. Well done.
I was so worried there. I was going to give a shutout this week.
All right.
So that's our trivia. We're tied 3-3. That's pretty solid, I think.
That's pretty damn solid. You're probably going to overtake me in Guardians. Oh, God.
Oh, that's next week, isn't it? Shit.
So we're going to be talking about Doctor Strange next week, obviously. But, yeah, the trivia for next week will be Guardians 2, and I'm going to get my ass handed to me.
I'm looking ahead at my questions right now. You are going to get stumped. I am sorry.
It's only fair. It's only fair.
Well, my hard question next week is actually one I thought was really interesting, so you'll see more later. Before we talk about Doctor Strange next week, though, Ryan, we have one more segment to get through.
Boy.
It's called The List, and this is where we rank all the movies on a list.
Put it on the list.
Hence why it's called List. Yeah, so we rank them to see what the best Marvel Cinematic Universe movie is, and right now, our number 1 is Guardians of the Galaxy, with the last movie being Iron Man 3. Last week we ranked Ant-Man, which is now number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 7! Ryan, where are we going to put Civil War in this list?
God damn. Let me hear the top 3. Let me hear the top 3.
I'll read you the top 6, because that's where we have our special color-coded entries. Number 6 is Captain America. Number 5 is Ultron. Iron Man's number 4. Number 3 is Avengers. Number 2 is Winter Soldier. And number 1 is the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay. Then... my heart is breaking. I'm going to recommend that we put this movie... oh my god. Okay, it's either 1 or 2. It's either 1 or 2. And I am torn because I love this movie so much. I love this movie so much. But I understand that much of my love for it, aside from it being a fantastically done fucking film, is that it's really like aimed at the shit that I like to watch. Like I like the really serious stories with the hint of comedy. I like the great action. I like the really intense drama that goes on. I love all that shit. I eat it up with a spoon. That being said, Guardians of the Galaxy was pure fun. It was pure fun and enjoyment. And I think it was much more inclusive for everybody to get into. But
so I see what you're trying to say here, because you've got a bias towards to Civil War because it's your movie geared towards you. I've got a bias a little bit towards Guardians of the Galaxy because, as you know, it's a movie geared towards me and my silly bullshit. Yep. So this is really tough because both of them do what they do really better than any of the other films in the cinematic universe. And the really question is, which one does what it does best and maintains its overall... I don't know. It's tough.
I also want to say that while Guardians, I feel, is a little more generally inviting towards like everybody in the franchise, as a standalone, it doesn't add a whole bunch to the overall saga. It introduces an Infinity Stone, and it gives us our first real look at the cosmic setting, which is all fantastic and really, really, really cool. And we get to see Thanos for the first, he gets a speaking role. Thanos, we actually get to hear the Mad Titan and converse with him for a little bit, which is huge, which it is. But Civil War changes the global scale, changes on a global scale. So, the events in Civil War drastically affect the cinematic world, Earth in the cinematic universe. It's drastically changed by the events of Civil War. So, in terms of, saga impact, I feel like Civil War wins out a little bit.
At the same time, though, we learned the most about the Infinity Stones through Guardians of the Galaxy, which is going to become important throughout the majority of the films, too.
You're right. That is also true.
It's so hard to nail it down.
You want to play rock, paper, scissors for it?
So I've poked Amanda real quick to see if she'll pop in to do a tiebreaker. I'm not going to tell her which one either of us are for. I'm waiting to see if the door opens and she pops her head in to see if she'll help us out here. But I haven't gotten a response yet, so we're gonna just banter for a minute here. Okay. So an argument I have against Civil War, just to play devil's advocate.
Please.
So going back to the reviews we saw earlier, a very valid point was made that you have to see a lot of previous material to really understand and get the concept of Civil War. Now, for you and me, and for the average Marvel fan, not a big deal. But it's difficult for a non-Marvel fan, or even just a casual Marvel fan who only watches maybe one of the heroes, to really jump in and follow along and totally get the situation. Whereas Guardians of the Galaxy, there's no previous stuff you need to really know, and it informs a lot of stuff that comes out afterward. Or I guess a good chunk of stuff that comes out afterward. So, in terms of just general audience ability to get into it, I think Guardians is a stronger film in that regard. Again, not to diss Civil
that's
War.
fair. That's definitely fair. And I said something similar earlier. On the whole, Guardians is a better job of bringing people to Marvel. In terms of sheer joy, comedy, action, but also in the fact that it requires little to no foreknowledge. It's just, here, come see a movie about these fucking dweebs running through space and doing crazy shit. One of them's a tree that says 3 words. So yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from there. But Civil War is just so good. But Civil War's so good.
I know, it's really hard to pick, because a part of me wants to put Civil War on top, but a part of me is like, it does have some problems holding it back, and those problems aren't the problems that Guardians of the Galaxy has. Conversely, whatever problems Guardians of the Galaxy has, Civil War doesn't really have. So they're both kind of the opposite sides here, both doing the best of what they do, and having flaws that kind of are not really the problems of the other one. So it's just really hard to do, you know? They're so different, and at the same time, they're both such a high level of quality that it's hard to really nail it down which one.
God damn it.
Is this really going to be the sticking point for this podcast? We can never go past this wall?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point of contention because we're both stuck. It's not that we're both refusing to budge on one particular movie. It's the fact that we both see that these movies are really, really, really good, and we both kind of want to put both of them in both spots. Damn it.
Well, and the other thing too is we're both so concerned about being too biased for our own favorite film.
It's just Civil War's so fucking good.
Right. Let me ask you this. Let's pause here for a minute. If we ignore these two movies here real quick, is there any other movie you can think of? You don't have to name a name, but is there any other movie you can think of coming down the road that beats either of these two?
Not right down the road. Not right down the road, but possibly. Possibly. God damn it. Yeah. No, I will say yes.
Okay. So we know that neither of these two are going to stay in the top spot permanently. There's a chance that one of them could be knocked down even if it gets number one. So, with that in mind, which one of these do we feel comfortable enough to throw against that one? Like, which one is going to give that one you're thinking of the most run for its money? Or I guess the way to put it, which one's going to compare to that one in the most direct... So, let's say, for example, the top movie you're thinking of is Spider-Man. I know it's probably not it, but just an example. So, of these two films, if Spider-Man was it, which one would you want to pick to compare? Like, which one would be able to make most direct comparisons to, put scene next to each other and say, this was done better than that, this was done better than that, yada yada yada. So, in this case, I know this is a weird question to ask, but I think, do you understand where I'm coming from on this one?
Kind of, but you're also asking me to kind of pick which movie is kind of more similar to the movie I think that's coming up. Because if you're doing like a scene-by-scene comparison, like this, like movie X did this better than Civil War, or it did this better than
so this is a flawed question. This is a flawed question. Then okay, I see where you're coming from.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm going to swallow my pride, and it's actually your question that helps me kind of be at peace with the decision. I am going to say that we put Civil War at a really, really close second. Because
are you sure?
I'm going to say that because at the end of the day, I think the best Marvel movie will be the one movie that we can kind of put in front of somebody who's never seen Marvel and say, you okay, you're not sure if you want to watch the rest of the show, the movies. Watch this. This will sell you on the 22 fucking other movies that are in this series. And
that's fair. That's fair because you're right. At the end of the day, you want to be able to put someone in front of any movie and just say, go for it, but you can't just do that with any movie here. Like, I think it'd be crazy to put someone in front of Ultron and say, hey, get into this series by watching Ultron. That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. And I mean, it's... That's a tall order to ask of any movie in this series because it's a fucking 22 movie series, and the biggest thing, or like some odd movie series, and the biggest thing that I love about it is the fact that it's telling a very large, very long story. So like the biggest things that I love are the stuff that gives me more into the overarching saga that is the cinematic universe. But that being said, if we're gonna pick a one, this is the best movie, I should be able to put you down in front of it, not really knowing anything, and say, here, check this out. So,
well, and add to that too, I think Guardians is a good pick for that because it represents the overall tone and theme of Marvel in whole. It's a fun, rompy, comedy team-up film where you have all these friends and heroes and family getting together to save worlds, galaxies even. So, yeah, I think that's actually kind of a fair way to look at it.
Yeah. I'm Cap, forgive me. I love you. No, but yes, no. I will say, because of the restriction to entry in terms of the stuff that you have to know before going into it, Guardians. Yeah, Guardians is a pretty good fucking movie. Guardians is number one right now.
It's a hard movie to topple, but
I also make this decision because I'm going to lean on this argument again when the movie that I think is better than it comes down to talk.
And I will firmly agree with you because I think you're right. We need to have the movie up top be the one that you can literally show anyone and say, this is why this is the best, this is why this series is worth watching, check this shit out. So, you are absolutely right. And I think when we get to that point, you'll have a very convincing argument for me there.
Yeah.
Alright, so after much deliberation, longer than I think we've ever expected it to be, we have our list. Guardians is still number 1, Civil War is number 2, followed by Winter Soldier number 3. Captain America's still dominating the top spots for the most part.
Captain America's the best. I'm sorry, nope. I'm gonna stop myself. But goddamn it, Captain, my captain. Oh, Captain,
all right.
My captain. All right.
With that, everybody, thank you for listening. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, evacstation@gmail.com to send us trivia questions that you want to see us answer, movie suggestions, or if you want to answer the listener question of the week, which is the storyline adaptation question. Please answer that if you can. Yeah, so that was Civil War, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week for Doctor Strange. Things are going to get a little weird there, right, Ryan?
Oh, I'm ready! I'm already doing the hand signals, the hand signs.
I'm excited. I'm not just looking forward. Doctor Strange is one I fondly remember. I'm hoping I remember it really well still. Like, I'm hoping it lives up to the memory.
It's so
but until we see Doctor Strange, and until we see the weirdness that is Doctor Strange, we'll see you again after the credits.
Bye.